Greetings and welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. As an extension of my Instagram page, Cerebral Women, this podcast offers insights into the visual art world. I interview artists, mainly artists of color and female artists, who will freely articulate what inspires their creativity. In addition, you'll hear interesting perspectives from dedicated art professionals who work with artists and the art institutions that feature them. I'm confident that collectively, these individuals will indeed stimulate your mind as they do our eyes. Please know these interviews are conducted in my Manhattan apartment, so please forgive the background sounds of city life. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. In this episode of the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast, I feature Harlem-based visual artist Wardel Milan. His practice encompasses drawing, painting, photography, and performance, and he studied photography at the University of Tennessee and Yale University. Wardel has been included in numerous solo and group exhibitions, including MoMA PS1, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Studio Museum in Harlem, Crystal Bridges, the Andy Warhol Museum, Camden Arts Center in London, just to name a few. And his work is included in the collections of several prestigious institutions, including the MoMA, Whitney Museum, Art Institute of Chicago, the Hammer Museum, the Studio Museum of Harlem, Brooklyn Museum, to name a few. Wardel has received several awards, grants, and residencies, which include the Joan Mitchell Painters and Sculptors Grant, Skowhegan and Studio Museum of Harlem. He has also been featured in several publications, which include the Brooklyn Rail, Hyperallergic, Art Forum, the New York Times, etc., etc. Wardel's first major museum solo exhibition, currently at the Bronx Museum of the Arts in New York, is titled America, God Bless You If It's Good to You. It's curated by Holly Block social justice curator Jasmine Wahi. The exhibition is a series of flat works and performance collaborations of 12 new and recent drawings and mixed media collages. The survey is part of a year-long series celebrating the Bronx Museum's 50th anniversary and legacy as an institution dedicated to social justice, and is currently on view through October 24, 2021. Please visit his website, wardelmilan.com, to see his expanded and impressive CV. Thank you very much and enjoy this episode featuring Wardel Milan. Wardel, thank you so much for joining me on my Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast today.
My pleasure.
Let's start out by you sharing with us when you realized your artistic passion.
That came really early. My parents, I guess, were the first to recognize my interest in being creative and in being a maker. And with that recognition, they enrolled me in art classes. And I guess I was maybe 8 or 9, whatever the age is when you're in 3rd and 4th grade. So they enrolled me in after school art classes when I was in those grades and at that age, and really nourished my interest in being, I don't want to say an artist because I feel like that's too strong of a label for an 8-year-old, but in being a creator. So they saw that interest and saw that talent at that young age, and was very much nourishers and wanted to help in the maturing of that talent and of that interest. So, I mean, I've always known that I wanted to enjoy being a maker of objects and of images. But I guess it wasn't until perhaps high school when I understood, like my junior, senior year of high school, when I understood that I wanted to be an artist with a capital A, and to pursue that as not only as a profession, but as a lifelong dedication.
How did you start out? Was it comic books? Do you remember if you started drawing, or was figures, was abstract, was it bodybuilding?
You're hitting on all of it. Yes, I started with drawing, and I would draw models from JCPenney catalogs. I mean, I don't know if JCPenney even sends out catalogs, but it was JCPenney and Sears catalogs. And I would draw the clothes and the figures from those catalogs. And then I would start drawing muscle builders from like muscle magazines. So I was always drawing figures that were in some sort of publication or some sort of retail purchasing periodical or catalog. I remember I was drawing like women and men in underwear, and I remember hiding those drawings and hiding them in my desk drawer. My father like looking through the desk drawer to find, I don't know what he was looking for, but he found the drawings. He just kind of looked at them, and I was feeling really embarrassed, but he didn't say anything. He just closed the drawer and kept on about his business. I guess part of that was because we're Southern and we suppress our feelings and our thoughts. But yeah, my early reference images and early models came from those magazines, those Sears and JCPenney catalogs.
Was there a particular artist that you remember really inspired your work early on? Yeah, I would say that visual artist Francis Bacon was an early influencer and someone whose work I would repeatedly return to. But I was most often inspired by film. So like the films of Fellini, I was really inspired by the film Seven by David Fincher. I can't remember the director's last name, but the movie Seven that starred Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Really the title sequence of that movie I found really influential. So film cinemas were definitely great influencers and inspired me and influenced my work at an early age, during high school and those early years of undergrad. And there are many aspects of your practice. What are the roots in that?
I think it comes from those early art lessons that I was taking after school, and then eventually my mother enrolled me into Saturday morning art classes. And in those lessons, we would go from painting these small little paintings on panel using acrylic, and then we would use really crappy clay to make sculptures, and then making mobiles like kinetic sculptures and making collages. So in those classes, there was a really dynamic lessons, so that we weren't focusing on one material or one medium, but it was really kind of a holistic experience where the instructors encouraged us to learn how to use our hands in a number of different mediums. So I think that's part of it, and also just my how quickly I can become bored with myself in my own practice, and wanting to figure out or learn how to speak about a topic or a theme that of interest, or perhaps that I've been dealing with for a while, but how to express certain ideas in a different medium or in a different way.
Let's talk about your current show at the Bronx Museum. Just share with us all the details about it.
Yeah, so the show was titled America, God Bless You If It's Good to You. And the title was taken from a Kendrick Lamar lyric. And I started making some of the work that is shown in the exhibition during my time in Copenhagen in 2019. I spent the summer there working with Boych Editions, which is a printing studio in Copenhagen. And Niels Boych has worked with everyone from Julie Moretu to Bas Lewis. So being able to work with him in that studio was an amazing experience. And I started making work that belongs to a print portfolio titled Balcony. And in these etchings and the narratives and the images in these prints really deals with what I was experiencing, reading and witnessing here in the streets of New York, but also just looking at the State of the Union and wanting to speak about and comment on what the State of the Union looked like, how I was witnessing it. Up until then, I had been really making work that dealt with my interior. So making, paintings and drawings that served as almost cathartic expressions or movements, or served as like my therapist and counselors. So making work that was really fleshing out and exposing my interior self. So I was really had become exhausted with examining me and looking at me and making work that was a reflection of that, and wanting to work more in the vein of Joan Didion, and being a kind of a journalist and a documentarian of contemporary society, as well as also weaving in my own personal narratives within these much larger kind of journalistic editorials. And so in this show at the Bronx, it really stems from those first 8 etchings that I made in Copenhagen, and grew into a body of work that really begins to speak on, again, the state of the Union and how I've been witnessing it over the last 2.5 years. So, there's works that deal with white supremacy and the alt-right and these ultra-conservative ideas, work that deals with the suppression and the violence that Black and brown bodies consistently experience from either the police or some sort of power structure. Also work that comments on sexuality and how sexuality and gender, at least in my opinion, doesn't exist between two poles, but there's between straight and gay. There's all this grayness, there's all this beautiful blurring of lines that exists between the two poles. And then within that, commenting on the violence that Black trans women consistently experience in their daily lives. So, and then with all those narratives, I slip in little autobiographical pieces of myself in these much larger, complicated narratives. So I really approach on the walls of the Bronx Museum currently, and then the work that I'm making at present, really adopting or trying to adopt the working practice of Joan Didion and Hilton Als and some of the essays written by James Baldwin, and wanting the work and myself to function as witnesses and as documentarians of the current state of the world, and specifically of this nation.
Let's talk about the part of the narrative that addresses your personal self. Are there reflections of memories of your childhood?
Absolutely. I always tell people that I had like the best childhood that one could have, being a young Black boy, gay boy, growing up in a conservative state, in a conservative town. I couldn't have had better parents and more supportive parents. And so I like to not only make comment of the region that I grew up in, but also of my parents and of my family in the work. So the references are oftentimes, especially now, is really subtle. So the reference actually may just be in the title and not visually represented in the work. But I definitely try to, with some of the pieces, try to point back to my childhood or to Tennessee in a way that is honoring both of those things, but also in a way that at times can be critical to the history of the South, and specifically the history of Tennessee and of the city and the surrounding areas that I grew up.
When do the titles of your paintings enter the creative process?
Sometimes it begins at the very beginning of the work, before I even have an image. So I used to have the title before I had the work. And a lot of times the titles would come from after reading an essay or reading some sort of literary text. So I'd have the title, and then I'm like, okay, I want to make work that is inspired by this text. And then other times I make the image, and as I'm looking on the walls now in the studio, and making a work that deals with isolation, or deals with the idea of the separation and the rejection of physical touch. And so I don't have a title for the piece, but hopefully once the work has reached a point where it has its own life, its own agency, then the title will present itself. And then, like I said, other times the title comes from, right now I'm reading the work of R.G. Lloyd, and have underlined I don't know how many sentences and phrases that she has written. And so I'm definitely inspired by that text and those words. And I know that some of those passages that I've underlined will serve as the title of the piece, and also serve as how the image will ultimately begin and then mature because of those words.
And how do you feel as you approach a blank canvas? What comes over you?
It depends. Sometimes an artist has to make work because there's an art fair. When I'm approaching it, not because it's out of obligation, I'm really excited. And I like the challenge that the blank canvas, piece of paper, unused reference image that I've torn out of a book, like what they can offer. Always excited by that exploration and figuring out the life of the image or the piece that I'm making.
How do you keep learning?
I try to make a lot of mistakes. I always try to get to a point when whatever I'm making, and oftentimes it comes like halfway through the completion of the piece, or at least I have a strong idea as to where the work is going. And if I have too much clarity, I'm like, okay, I trust the clarity, but I feel like there needs to be another level of discovery. So sometimes I'll do something to the piece to put myself into a corner, or to have to make myself have to work out of a mistake, quote unquote mistake. And oftentimes that's when something of a learning experience or the unknown or the discovery can happen. And that's always super exciting. So I like to give myself that exercise oftentimes with the work. Other times it's just through reading and listening and reading the words, listening to and reading the words of the authors that I find most inspiring, and watching films that I think are either cinematically gorgeous or that are cerebrally challenging. And I think through those exercises or forms of entertainment or forms of learning aids in constantly discovering not only new things about the creative process, but new things about me as a creative, and then also how I want to take what I've absorbed and apply that to the studio practice.
What passion do you find creating work?
What passion do I find creating work?
Or what aspect of your practice would you say is most fulfilling?
Well, one, I'm in the studio almost every day. And even if I don't put my hand on anything, I'll still be here occupying the space. So it is definitely, being in the studio and being creative it's important to my daily being. I get most excited and most turned on when whatever it is I'm working on begins to tell me what it wants or what it needs to either be moved forward or to be completed. I very much like it when I'm working on a figure or working on a collage, and it's like, Wardell, we need more blue. Or like, bruh, you got to take this out. Or, I need 3 eyes instead of this 2. And so I get super excited when I'm told what to do by the work, and it's not me trying to push an idea or push a form along to become something. But after that process, after I've done the pushing and the form has become and is beginning to have a voice and directing me on how to complete it.
Do you feel your audience, do they appreciate or do they understand your work?
I don't know. I hope they appreciate it. I hope they appreciate it. I think that with some of the work, it's easy to understand. Some bodies of work, maybe not so much. My gallerist, my New York gallerist, David Nolan, who's also a very good friend of mine, he told me years ago that a collector who has seen some of my work, some of my more, I guess, difficult work to view and live with, he said that the collector looked at them and they said, Wardell must be the most difficult person to deal with. I mean, all the anger. And he's like, no, actually, he's pretty chill and pleasant. So I hope that one, there's appreciation when people see the work, and whether or not they completely understand what the work is about or what I'm trying to say, it's not really so much my concern. I always say I like to, part of my goals and and part of my likes when making the work and when thinking about the viewer is to leave them completely confused.
How would you define Black art?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how to define Black art. So I think that for some, it's easy to say what Black art is. And I think when they can easily apply a definition or can easily voice a summary, that they're not really looking at the totality of Blackness or the totality of the community. One could say Black art looks like, the work of Kehinde or of Jordan Castell, and absolutely. And then they could say Black art looks like, the work of Wardell. And I think that I love the work of Jordan and Kehinde, but they exist on a I would say on a different. If we're looking at a spectrum, they're on a different side of that spectrum than I am, and perhaps we are speaking about different issues. And I think that is one beautiful, but also can make it difficult, or not difficult, but it can also make it challenging to say what is Black art. I guess I would just say Black art is any work that a person of color who identifies as Black is making.
I agree, because figurative work, you can assume someone's Black, right? 90% of the time, but then you have abstraction. How would you know?
Right. Think about the work of Demetrius Oliver, and particularly the work that he's making now is completely abstraction. Or the work of Leslie Hewitt. I mean, some of Leslie Hewitt's work is all about form. So unless you know that Leslie is a Black female, you're not going to know a Black female is making that work.
What would you say is the purpose of art?
Oh, I would say to challenge the viewer, to challenge communities in thought, to be generators of thought and of change, to offer a space for young people who live in the South and live in small to midtown southern cities like Knoxville, Tennessee, a place to understand who they are and to make work and to be creative in a way that allows them to explain their interior selves or to comment on the world that they are moving through. I think art is so many things. It can be so many things and can offer and be the generator and the initiator of so many great and beautiful themes and outcomes.
It's been a great interview. I've been loving every minute of it. So this is our last question. And what do you feel is your role as an artist?
I always tell students when I was teaching teaching grad school students and MFA programs, I always tell them what my undergrad professor, Wardel Milan, told me when I told him that I wanted to be an artist and pursue it as a career. He told me, he called me Dell. He was like, Dell, the world already has so many great masterpieces and so many great artists out there in the world. So if you're gonna be an artist and you're gonna be an artist and this is gonna be your profession, you need to make sure you have something to say. So I think about that always. Like, if I feel like the work that I make and me as an artist, it should be saying something, and it should be saying something important. And whether it is speaking at an audible that is deafening, or whether it's a subtle commentary on the state of the world, I feel as if the work that I make always has to have, or needs to have, some sort of real voice and opinion.
And I appreciate that about artists who feel and think like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm still learning how to understand abstract work. Figurative work I can look at and sort of, draw conclusions. But the abstract work is, it's still challenging for me.
Me
in general.
too.
Oh, you too?
Well, listen, I went to grad school and undergrad and took all these art classes and, but yeah, looking at some abstract art is still hard to understand and what it is the artist is saying. Sometimes it's hard to understand what it is you're looking at. But in those moments can be really exciting because it's up to you. It's up to you, Phyllis, me, Wardell, but also you, the viewer, to make your own conclusion or your own understanding as to what it is you're viewing when the figure is absent and all you have is a ball of tape that has a stamp on top of it and it says, "You're welcome." It's like, well, what does this mean? So I think that using your eyes and your intellect to read and to understand and to conclude or not conclude, have conclusion as to what it is you're viewing. I think that's one of the great exercises and great gifts that art, and particularly conceptual abstract art, can provide.
I agree. It's more intellectually challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The message is not clear.
Right. Right.
This has been great. I really appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. For additional content, please visit cerebralwomen.com and be sure to follow Cerebral Women on Instagram.